I live in London.
Okay. Okay.
And Richard and I have been working together for about getting on 6 years. We work in investment industry for a long time, for about 30 years, and we left it a couple of years ago. We left it because we wanted to, we felt that actually investments were not doing the things that they're supposed to do, which is make the world better. It's actually making things worse. And we felt that we needed to say why, and say that kind of loudly for people to understand, which we did. In sort of a book we wrote called The Unsustainable Truth. And since then, which was last year, really, the book got published last year, and since then we've been trying to think actually how can we resolve the problems that we have today. And the most important part of the problem that we see is really climate change, which is affecting everybody. And where you are, you see it a lot more immediately than we do here. The part which everybody in what they talk about in terms of managing it has to do with really about how the future works, but the problem comes from what we're doing today. And to change what we're doing today now is what everyone in a sense is avoiding. So that's what we want to talk about, and that's what we want to get engaged with you all over, so that we can do that. So that's kind of the starting where we are now. Richard is saying he's trying to, but he can't. I don't know why, because you could. I think he must be trying it from the wrong thing. Trying to log in. What do you see? What is the problem? So he's trying to log in. He's saying he can't log in.
Maybe he's using an iPhone which has no Google.
He may be.
Yeah,
I don't know what he's using. Tell me a bit about yourself while we're waiting. And I'm WhatsApping him. So
I have been with Kaka in community projects around here in Kenya. Currently, I am working on my own project on plastic and white paper waste management. We collect and take to recyclers for like the circular economy kind of thing. Yes, but we've been working with Kaka on community projects, the environmental projects, water, so lobbying for water projects, cleanups, environmental cleanups, tree planting. Yeah, so we're looking forward to getting more partners on board to help us, especially in funding, because we already have the networks, the people. The problem is funding. You have to buy all those things, attend these places, and it all requires money. So that's the biggest challenge. But for the ideas and networks, we do have the people. Yeah, we've been doing well. Yes, and hoping to engage with.
So what's the plastic? So what's the plastic thing that you're doing?
Okay, so
you said your own project. So what's the idea?
So we collect, we gather, say wherever we get the plastic waste, and then we take to recyclers. There are so many plastic waste recyclers, particularly the plastic bottles, the PET, the water bottle. So we take it to them, and then they recycle, take back to the plastic companies. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Okay. And I see people have joined now. Richard, you're there. Kaka's there. Chuck Collins. Is it Collins? Manyasi.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Is that your friend and colleague?
Hello. Thank you.
Hi. So what I want to do today is to really pick up on some of the points that Sally is describing. I think most importantly is this aspect of funding and financing, what you want to do. And I think Kaka and I kind of had conversations about this. And basically, the way we see it is that it's very important that you are able to generate livelihoods for yourselves out of the things that you do, out of campaigns and things that you do. And it's really important because the way we see it, funding is going to dry up. Okay. So countries are running out of money. You can call on wealthy people, but really money is not going to flow in that way. And the activities you do, and this is even more important, is that, you know, the whole essence of what we write in our book is that we live in an economy, in a global economy, and every part of it essentially is about extracting resources to be used again. And Nesola, Sally, you mentioned, but you mentioned about sort of the recycling and those sort of things, and those are approaches to try and help us not be so extractive. I'm just going to go and close my door for a moment. But by and large, they don't really work, and they don't work at the scale that we need to do things about for today. So we're going to go on a little bit more about that in that way. So what Richard and I wants to do, and we're calling on your help, and we're going to describe what we want to, how that might come through and so on, is to make 2023 the year that people will look back on and says, that's when we got everybody together to say, we're going to have to cut oil, gas, and coal production now before it's too late. So if you look at every protest and every petition and all of those things, they're all about how we won't use it in the future. They're not actually about how we're going to cut our production today. And if you do that, what you've done is you've made 2023 into the year we stop climate change. That's good. That's basically what we want to do. And we want to do this not by protests and petitions, because they don't work, but through the things that give us joy. And this is really, really crucial. And for yourselves, and for many, many people that I'm sure from your communities, and for most of the world without the wealth that they're trying to rely on at the moment, it starts with having a livelihood. It starts with being able to do the things that you're passionate about, to be able to create a day-to-day livelihood from it so that you can continue to do that. So if you think about what Sally just described and Kaka, what he talked about in terms of the planting trees and so on, and what they need to do in our mind is that they need to be ways in which you can create livelihoods about it. And that talks about the economics of it. If you always need someone to fund you for your actions, you become dependent on that funding. You end up spending all your time making your case about why you need the funding, as opposed to dealing with what you aim to do and actually creating the world you want. So this is about that part, is a different aspect of it. And a crucial element with what Richard and I, with our approach and thinking, is, I'm getting a little lost here, so please excuse me. A crucial aspect about it, I'm getting lost because I'm not sure which strand I want to go to and so on, is to understand that most of the time when we go about trying to make money or trying to get some way of innovating, as it were, to help ourselves, what we're doing is we're simply repeating the same mistakes that have brought us into this part. And those are the mistakes of what we call an extractive economy. That is an economy that relies on things being extracted and continuing on. I'm going to take the plastic recycling as an example. There's a lot of talk about recycling and how recycling you need to do and so on. The big problem with our world today is we're simply creating too many of it in the first place. It's not the fact that we're not recycling, but we're creating too much of that. And a large part of that creation of all of those materials is what also perpetuates our continued use of oil, gas, and coal. But we can't really see our way of cutting it, because if we do that, we actually start saying, hang on, how are people going to live? So what this is to be able to start from the side of saying, if we can we get young people like you in campuses and colleges to work together on things that you're passionate about, create livelihoods for yourselves, and in doing so, create livelihoods for others, so that we can see how we can then go on and say, we can cut oil, gas, and coal production now before it's too late. And we're going to bring that together to cut oil, gas, and coal production, not by petitioning and so on, but by calling on everybody who now can see how we can have livelihoods to say, let's take them over. So you hear about companies being taken over, being bought out. There's no reason why we can't get together and actually be the owner in control. Total Energies is the company planning the East African crude oil pipeline. There's a lot of protests and a lot of things about it. A lot of comments about why it's not necessary and so on. But the decisions are made by the people behind the boardroom doors. So the way you want to do it is to be the people behind the boardroom doors. So that's basically about how you do that. To do that in a way which people will be behind you and not think you're simply replacing whoever are there now by you and your own vision of what it is, and someone else will say you're wrong and they'll be protesting outside of your doors again and repeating the same thing, is to bring everybody on board. And the whole campaign is called The Things That Give Us Joy. We want you to help us to outline it better. But for now, what we want to do is to have you basically work with us in a way as a kind of like a workshop of understanding about emergent economics and how we can actually create livelihoods out of the things that we do. And Kaka has been growing saplings, and we've been talking to him about growing saplings. And he has a lot of saplings, but they need a lot of water. Doesn't seem to be enough water, and so on. And that's probably going to get worse. So this question, what we'd like to do is to think about, okay, can we take that as an example of, looking at the situation, have a kind of a brainstorming session, and thinking, okay, how can we turn what we do in the case in this particular case, let's take the case of Kaka growing his saplings, which I think you're aware of, into a livelihood. And if you can make that into a livelihood, how do we make sure that this livelihood achieves the actual ambitions that you want? So we need to be clear about what those are, and actually how might they need to be adapted in order for them not to become just another example of an extractive economy, but actually an emergent economy. So briefly, what is an emergent economy? I believe very strongly that resources and opportunities are present all the time, even in places where people do not believe where resources and opportunities are. And most of all, a lot of those resources and opportunities are in our own actions already. So when Sally's describing about the recycling, the collecting the bottles and things, there are opportunities and resources already there. And those things that you collect themselves represent a resource and opportunity more than simply to sell to a recycling plant. So it's up to us to start thinking about what that means. And by thinking about it, maybe thinking back into how those come about, we form the other connections. So that's one important element of it. So it's not about our idea of a good plan of how we can make lots of money or create a livelihood, but it's about actually looking into the situations, listening and understanding about the people involved. Who is it who's dropping the plastic bottles? What's going on? Who is it who is interested in the plants and so on, to be able to see where are the resources and the opportunities. And the second part that's really important is that in an extractive economics, what happens is everything becomes a transaction. And if you go back into economic history, into the classic text of economics, like Adam Smith and so on, what happens is they talk about the way in which we division of labor. So one person does this, another person does that, and another person does the next thing. And what happens in that case is we separate out between the connections of the purpose we want to do it for, from the paying of the money in order to do one thing to another. And when you do that, the result is you don't actually see that your transactions may or may not be doing the good you wanted to do at all. So you operate under the belief that you do, but actually you're no longer connected along with it. So for example, here in this country, there's a lot of media coverage about recycling. In this country, about 70% of the recycling waste that's collected is thrown back away into landfills. They're not recycled. And of the 30% that's recycled, a large part of it doesn't actually go anywhere in the sense of finding what. But those that goes into recycling typically gets sent to another continent to get recycled. There's very little of that actual recycling along. And amongst those, by the time they've filtered everything through, most of it's gone away. So you've generated a lot of activities along, but at the end of it, you haven't necessarily achieved this. But on the other side, what it has done, because people put a recycling label onto the bottles, you actually get a lot more of the plastic created as a result. So the whole chain there can, because we are separated by this division of labor, we end up not seeing the whole chain. And so that's the way in which an extractive economics work. So for an emergent economics to work, it needs to follow on through. It needs to recognize and ask, am I actually giving back more than I'm taking along each step of the way? And then when you're asking that, you're basically asking, who am I giving back to? And what does that mean for me and what I take? So you end up realizing that sometimes you may have the best idea, but there is only limited scope for what that is. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing, but it just means that you need some other ideas and some other ideas. In the world today, the way I see that is if you look at our animals and plants, there are all the different types of animals and plants, and they're like little ideas that have come into fruition, and they're all the different types of it. And it's not just one that dominates along. And it works much better for the whole system along. And when you start thinking about that giving back more than you take, what you're doing is you are linking up with a community, and you're actually saying the wealth of what you do lies in the community that's connected together. Whereas in a extractive economics, the wealth of what you do is measured by the flow of money that goes along. So that makes that a bit different, makes that very clear. I think I've said what I wanted to say. Just so that I know I'm just not talking blind in empty. Maybe it's good to have some feedback from you about that. If you can just ask Richard and I some questions along about that, and then what we then do is to take it from there into maybe if Kaka can tell us again what he told us yesterday about his climate story, how it got there, and we can then kind of present some of that and the watering, the man with the donkey and the borehole and that sort of stuff, and then we can talk a bit about actually taking it into a bit like a brainstorming session between us of saying, okay, what does it mean if we want to be a team of people who, in my description, is a team of ambassadors of things that give us joy. And why? Because we create livelihoods for ourselves and for others. And we do that with an emergent economics in the way that the economics of it emerges from where we are in our situation naturally and not forced onto it, as opposed to an extractive economics, which is where we take our situation and we try and squeeze as much out of it and measure it all in terms of the flow of money that goes on. How does that sound? Do you want to unmute yourself then?
Okay, so maybe before I do talk, It's good to know the people that we are having here. Naisola, we have Collins Manyasi, who has been on my advisory. Yeah, so maybe we can give to Collins to talk, to say a few things. His observation, he has got a long experience in working with community development, and he know exactly what livelihoods being made back in the village means for him. So maybe you can give him time to talk, and then from there I can, yeah.
Thanks, Kaka. Sorry, I was trying to move out to a more quiet place. So, hello, team. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, David, for the insights. Just briefly, maybe what I can say from the discussion that David has pointed out is that I agree with him totally about our planned activities, and it really helps us to plan on how we want to focus our projects and activities to actually ensure that they are more sustainable. And particularly the idea that everything that we are planning out has to be linked to community impact. And I will appreciate, because having worked for the communities through the Adoption Fund projects, currently with wildlife and conservation projects for the communities, I will agree that most of these interventions, even if we were to look at the funding, people really want to see the impact. And then out of that, even if you have to devise local interventions that actually the community, the young people at the very local level can actually pick up and utilize through technology, then we can tap that potential to scale up such projects. Or what Sally talked about, the plastic projects. It's a good idea that David has actually mentioned. We have to look at the entire value chain and see where is it that we can tap an opportunity out of it, and then scale up that project as something that most companies or organizations are not actually doing. So I welcome your ideas, and I look forward to engaging and collaborating, because I believe there is power in partnerships and collaborations. I think Kaka will be exploring more on the projects and the students' project that they are working on. Maybe I will seek to hear also from our friends on currently opportunities that link the student community projects and the outside world, probably. Because in Kenya, mostly I understand projects that students come up with. How can we leverage on opportunities for other key stakeholders outside government, probably. If it's through maybe the diaspora community, is it possible for us to tap that and help us champion our projects for something that's more sustainable? So I think that's the only thing I wanted to mention, but I'm glad to have such great ideas on how we can build more sustainable projects, not just looking at funding. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just thinking through and just writing some notes on what you were saying, and you know, really appreciate the feedback that you've given, and I think the way to talk about the outside work, I think this is really important. What we want to do between Richard and I is the following. We want students to come together into teams of 5 in our minds, because 5 is small enough and it's big enough and it's an odd number, so you always have that and so on, to be able to create livelihoods for themselves in the green actions that they want to do. Because when you go on and you graduate, you're going to face a very difficult choice. And we see this because we have spoken with, well, really our own children as well as their friends and others who have gone on, and what they end up doing is they end up joining a company along. And once you do that, you basically end up doing what they need you to do. And you become part of an extractive economy. And if we are really to change how we can be in our world on a longer perspective, we need to be able to say, I know how I can make a living for myself and for the communities that I care about in a way that's different. And that's why we think the Campuses and Colleges Green Network is really important. And we want really to be trying things out and helping basically lots of little teams along to try the different things along and find out just what it means to be developing an economy that emerges naturally from opportunities and resources present, rather than from requiring funding and bidding in. We just gave a talk at to a student group in Cambridge in the UK, you know, a top university, lots of very bright people. These are all for an entrepreneurship group, and they all want to basically say, I've got a great idea of how I'm going to save the world. If you give me $1 million, I will make it happen. And as soon as you go along and you get that $1 million in, and because they are really kind of students in that sort of elite university, they may well get the $1 million and the $10 million that comes afterwards. What happens as soon as you do that, it's you say, I know best how the world's going to be. And so you end up pushing forward what you think is the best thing for the world to be, and you push it on to communities and otherwise, and you no longer listen to them. And that's how we got in the situation we are here with regards to our climate and all of those things. So this is trying to go along and say, actually, the people who are the right people to do this are the ones yourselves, where you see the situation you are in, and you can actually say, you know what, very good, your ideas, like them, but we have our own way of living, and we can live well in that way too. And you cannot do that if you're unable to go through this period where you're at universities and campuses and colleges and thinking that somehow your livelihood at the end of it means giving up on all the things you're trying to do today. So that's kind of the motivation along. Now, once we can start with something like this, what we wanted to do is to go everywhere. So while we're talking with you, we want to be able to talk with someone on the Asian continent, someone in South American continent, someone in the different parts of North American continent, someone in Australia and around there. And what we really want to do is that for this sort of thing to become that the East African Campuses and Colleges Green Network to become a global one, where the green actions that are taking place are ones that create livelihoods around, because that's how you spread the things that give us joy. And that's why the campaign is called The Things That Give Us Joy. So to the part about connecting to the outside world and reaching to the outside world, that's kind of our ambition along. We want to do this in really fast pace. So we really want to be able to showcase the project as it goes on through. And here's the important thing. People think you showcase what succeeds. So you have a project and you go along and say, here's a great success, this is what it is. Actually, what you showcase, what the real value that there is the people. is your enthusiasm and your energy and the fact that you're willing to give things a go. That is what gives other people a sense that they can give things a go too. If you only showcase the things that succeed, what happens is people look at it and think, that's fantastic, that's great, but we in our situation, we can't do that. We don't have this, you don't have that, you have that. So what we want to show is to showcase this part where you can take where you are at the moment and you show people how you do that, to say, actually, we're trying along and this works, this doesn't. Tell me about what you're trying. And that way to connect up across the world. And this is kind of our part. As we do this, and this is where it goes into the big picture, as we do this, it becomes very apparent we all face the same problem, which is climate change. And we all face the fact that we need to actually take that force out of climate change now. It doesn't help us if climate change stops 20 years from now, because the world will have been devastated by it. Is that we have to stop it now. Stop it from, and by stopping it, the reality is it's not going to reverse. It's just going to keep going worse and worse and worse. That's why we have to actually stop it from getting worse. And that's what it means. So I like those things that you say. And in terms of scaling up and in terms of connecting with the rest of the world, that's kind of how I see it. Each project, each things that we do, it's not like, sort of like, I don't know what's an example. It's not like you have to create an iPhone that has to be used everywhere in the world. But actually, that, there's a way by which people can communicate and you have that and it works here. It doesn't have to work everywhere else. But what's the treasure that you show and you demonstrate? What's the thing that gives people the essence to know that they can be joyful and go forward, is to know that they can do that for themselves there too, in their own way. Okay, I've spoken too much again. What should we do now? I would suggest we take it on to a kind of a practical approach. So Kaka, do you just want to tell us again, the story you told us yesterday about how you got involved in the climate and actually the problem you faced with your sapling, that as we were having our call yesterday?
Indeed. Indeed, David and Richard and everybody else who is on this call, I want to say thank you for such a brilliant chance like this one, trying to find the solution for our planet. It's such a noble idea. And I just want to say that, when it comes to climate change, I know this is a war that is going to take us for some quite time before we overcome it, because I think we are prone to, when we hear about climate change, people think of seasons of pattern changing and all that, but actually there is more than that. There's more to that than just the patterns of the weather changing, like there is no rain, all that. The climate, there's more to that, and it's sad that at the setup of the government, for example, we tend to, exhaust the resources that already exist to try and make a situation better. That is sad, When you go to a country that mines copper, for example, they will mine more copper to try and improve a situation that does not exist, in essence of trying to exhaust what is already existing. And that is the worst kind of approach when it comes to climate change. The other day I saw people, using sea salt to make dry cells, so it just all kind of, it all depends with the approach that we have. But basically, I'm not sure that in the Zoom you can be able to share the screen. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I think I need to do something about participants, and I need to do something about put you as a co-host.
Maybe
you can now share screens. You should be able to do that now. I'm going to do the same with everyone, just so that they can. Can you do that now?
Yeah. Let me. I'm trying to join with a different. Just a minute.
Richard, you too. And Juliana, that wasn't. Welcome.
Actually, I'm the one using the. I can't get exactly what I wanted to share, but I'm using a certain machine here, but it's fine. So. Can you see my screen from your end?
Not yet.
Don't see it being shared, no.
Do you there's a bit on the bottom that says where's share screen? The little green things that says share screen. Can you see that? Is that? Yeah, now I'm seeing.
Yeah, okay. So basically, I just want to take you through it's about EACCGN for the sake of clarity and what we have so far achieved. So I've been serving in a climate change as an activist in Kenya. I have been doing much, and of course, with the space that we are provided and with whatever we can afford, because I always believe that everyone can do something somewhere, irrespective of whatever they have at their hand. There's always a starting point to every one of us, to try and make some situations better. So I think on my slides, you can be able to see as that is the University of Nairobi Faculty of Law that is in Parklands, Nairobi. And this was on the 25th, it was 25th, 29th of October when we launched it was a pre-launch for the EACCGN. And we went ahead. Most of the students you see there are like a combination of all the years, first years, second years, fourth years, in that order. So basically, if you look at my screen, I've just tried to describe what EACCGN is all about and what it's trying to address. So we are an SDG-centered campaigns, of course, that we have a couple of objectives that we intend to aim, one of them being climate justice and advocacy, whereby our voices needed to count in the space of climate justice. Another thing was that came to our mind that actually has been a bigger challenge, not just in Kenya, but also in East Africa at large, is proper waste management. It has been a big challenge. Even I remember last time I shared about the issue of Nairobi River, whereby, we've been trying to find solution as to why Nairobi River, is in the situation it is. It's all because of proper waste management. And it's sad because if you wait for the government to act, it will never happen. So that's the fact. And it's a reality. We need to know that. And it's all over the world, not just in Kenya, but all over the world. The government can never do good to improve the situation in the climate sector justice. And number three, it is to create a platform for employment opportunities to learners involved in innovation, technological spaces to combat climate crisis. So alongside, we mentioned about the issue of creating a livelihood. I know my story inspires people a lot when anytime I come to, the issue of, climate justice. So the other thing is, we rear seedlings to increase forestry cover within diversity corridors that's cut off the greenhouse emissions and enhance clean energy. So currently that's what we are doing. And we have done quite good so far. We have got a lot of seedlings we're generating. Recently after the launch of the 15 billion Jazamiti Green Initiative, we're now starting to rear a lot of sapling within the varsity corridors. And I think for now we have about 53, about 27 members. We have 13 members in Kenya, and the rest are from East Africa. So that's basically what we are doing. But on my second screen, I'm just trying to make this one so that you can be able to see what this is all about. There are always challenges that emerge. And one of it is just a moment. So if you look at this picture, for those of you who can be able to see it, just a minute, I try to put it on the screen. So if you look at this, if you look at that photo, it is basically trying to explain the situation on the ground, how things looks like. And that one is a challenge to us, because in as much as we want to, come up with a program whereby we want to generate more seedlings over the same, we still have a challenge, like for example, water. So for instance, where I rear trees, we have, at the campuses level, we can only manage to rear sapling where we have water. And, currently, back in the schools that we are in, like for example, the primary school that I was in, we just did birthday trees the other day. We launched it, and that is, we decided that every time someone is celebrating their birthday, for example, if you are 36 years, for example, you're turning 36, we plant 36 trees on your birthday celebration. And having that in that way, that you'll be able to rear for these trees, find water where you're going to get to water those trees to maturity. But if you look at that picture, you can be able to see donkeys, with jerrycan and all kind of thing, trying to find out water. So basically, where I am, I have to use a man with a cart with a donkey to try and, fetch water for me, because it's a challenge where I come from, and that is one of the biggest challenges you have when you tend to, create, on the road towards, greening our economy and all that. So I'm just trying to share a couple of pictures from my place where I come from. So that is the condition, how things are on the ground. Drought is an issue, but we have to look for ways of, how to put water and find on ways by which we can be able to access water on the same. So this picture down there is this is an activity that we did 3 months ago, actually before the existence of EACCGN back in the village under ESA, and we planted these trees. As you look at the kind of the soil that we have here is, kind red soil and all that. But then it takes a lot of energy and strides for you to come out clearly to find out how you're going to rear for these trees. But at least I can say that we're achieving much in as much as that this one is concerned. And we aim to have, we have a bigger vision for the EACCGN. We have big hope that it's going to transform and bring a lot of hope in the world of economics in terms of, engaging students on the road towards, green economy and on the road towards net zero. Trying to show something here. So far, those are the people that we are working with. I'm not sure what displaying. Okay, yeah. So if you look at the teams that have already so far joined us, I believe that at the level of student hubs, we can always find a way by which you can extend this task force to other places. If you look at the first one, we have Environmental Club of University of Nairobi, of course, being part with us, and currently they are doing mass generation of seedlings. We have MKU, is Mount Kenya University Environmental Club. We have Takasafi that are working with in Kibra. We have KU Environmental Club. We have Team Environment Kenya also part of us. We have Rethinking Choices, and you have March for Planet also being part of this. So we believe that with such effort put in place, without maybe laboring so much in terms of resources and all that kind of thing. Before maybe all those kind of resources comes in place, there's always a step we can take, and we have done that so far. We have taken a step further to ensure that we can be able to do this. So on our recently webinar, we did a build a youth, build Africa, and we now, as far as we have students all over East Africa. As you look at that poster, we have got all kind of students pursuing different careers, but they are all coming for unity for this task force on climate justice. This is rethinking choices during the launch, addressing students at the University of Nairobi, as shown in that slide. My internet is a little, I hope it is visible on your side.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
So that's basically the rough overview on what so far we have done, and the hope we still have in the near future that we will be able to manage a lot over the same.
So I'm going to take this to the next step, which is really more of a brainstorming type situation. And what we're going to do is to invite you just sort of like saying, okay, Kaka has presented some of the aspects. We want to plant trees, showing some pictures about them. I've taken screenshots, some of them along the way, because I might think it'd be nice to try and throw it back there to remind us along the way. And then really is, what do we think of that is probably a good place to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over the screen sharing. And this is entirely on the fly. And ultimately what Richard and I want to do with this, the reason why you are here, is to help us understand whether what we want to do is right. Have you contribute towards making it into something that you feel, actually, you know what, this makes sense for you. It can be something which you can be part of. And because if you feel that, we're sure that this is going to be felt like this is something that others like you will feel they can be part of. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the things which I had screenshot while Kaka was talking. And I'm just going to mention one or two things that comes to me about it, just to stimulate the discussion. So this is all part of things that give us joy. This is part of view details campaign, easy and the teams. So now I'm going to have that there. Have that there first. Have that there first. Okay, so these are, can you see that along reasonably well? Talk to me. Please say speak, yes. Speak up, because
I can see it fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone just speak up because it's easier. Imagine this was just you, your friends, and you're just kind of having a bit of brainstorming around with it. Okay, so what struck me is here I see two different types of trees. Okay, and that's important to me because they tell a story. Each different types of trees tells a story. And each different types of trees is potentially a different sort of resource. And so when I go to somewhere like this picture here, which I don't know if you can you see my cursor moving?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So you can see what I'm pointing to.
Yes.
See the different sort of trees along here. And a number of things strike me here. First of all, this is in a car. First of all, is the type of trees. So I'm looking at the type of trees. I'm looking at the type of trees. I see people standing there. And I see the way the hole is around and the soil is around. And I see a fence and I see a car park. So what I see here, the part that I recognize from here is, first of all, there's a way to have the water run naturally to the trees when the rain falls. So that talks about how you might plant and how you may place it. So what that does is it talks to me about how the resources are always present and how for you to achieve it, you can make it so that you help yourself. Now, immediately by saying that, actually, if we explore that, that becomes something which other people may be interested in using. It becomes a bit of knowledge that might actually be quite helpful to others. So there might be kind of a collection of tips and things, just like people buy recipe books. They might buy, you know, kind of guides about various stuff and things of that kind. So all your actions come together to providing something. So all the trees here, maybe you end up talking more about, you know, why is this suitable for a car park here? What are they? Then there are the people here. So how do you, there's this part of saying, actually, can I actually turn me planting trees into something where they want to come and say, can you help us to plant some trees? To do that. Maybe because it's a car park, maybe the trees will provide some shelter. And we all have this experience when we go into a car when it's been out in the sun and it's burning hot inside it. And we all look for that bit of shelter to park out under which to park our cars. So maybe different types of trees in different stages can become ways in which actually they can come to us about it. And in doing so, we connect in that way. And I see a fence, and trees make a fence. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can be better, and they can be much better because you don't get birds sitting on the fence, but you can get them quite happily in the trees. And there are all kinds of things that opens up as a result. Just from this picture that tells me, I'm not sure what the motivation is, but out of this, what I see in terms of opportunities, in terms of resources, is there are resources that comes, water that comes along, rain that comes along through, and that will help and say, how can we harness that along so that we give these trees more chance of being alive? And then I see the people around and I think, how can they become engaged so that they care about these trees being alive? How can we make it so that they would want to go around them? Maybe that's a way of planting and doing those sort of things. I see the cars and I think, actually, you know what, the trees can help the cars, and maybe the people who own the car park will end up coming along and says, how much for you to come and plant trees for us so that we can do that? How long would it take? And maybe it doesn't take much for a bit of shade for that to begin to do something. And then the aspect about forming boundaries and using trees to do that, if you really need to form a boundary, maybe it's a better thing to do, and then opportunities. And here I see this picture, I see the people involved, and I see that they hold different types of trees. And I'm asking, do they know which tree they are holding? Can they help people to choose their trees about what it is? Maybe one of them could sit, I see a house, some buildings behind. You know, maybe one of them would suit whoever may be living there and produce food for them, or fruit or shelter or whatever it is that may be there, and another could be in some other way. So there's a very rich story to the trees, that each one of those are points of livelihoods. And then I see the donkey and the water, and water is a real issue here. And I see this going along, and what you end up with is you end up basically asking this very basic thing. Everything has a capacity limit. And maybe we're running into our problem because we're trying to plant too many trees before we have figured out a way to deal with the water. And what we need to do is to use what we have at the moment to try and deal with the water. Now, I had a picture, which I don't know if I can find again. Actually, I know where I can find it. I find it in the WhatsApp that we had in the thing before. This picture here. Actually, it's not being shared, so I need to download it. Just give me one moment. And now, this is something my mum used to do. I'm going to And the slideshow, create a new slide. Going to put in the new picture into that. My mum was a very resourceful person. She found ways to do lots of things that, you know, I sort of learn from and understand. So here is that. And we used to go on holidays and then the plants wouldn't be watered and she put plastic bag around them and we'd be away for a week or two and we come back and they would be fine. And the reason is very simple, is because the plant, as it grows and captures the carbon dioxide in the air and so on, it gives out a lot of the water that it takes from the roots. And so what the plastic bag does is just to make sure that it doesn't get lost and it comes back. And so the amount of water you need ends up being a lot less that you put in because you're naturally reusing the water that's there. And if you're picking up a load of plastic bags, well, there you go. You know, these don't need to be clean plastic bags or whatever. You just need to be transparent enough for the plant to grow. Okay. So in this part where you see the issue about talking about, oops, sorry, I will start again. Where you're looking at something like the donkeys along, then you have this situation, you have two things occur to me, which is the relationship between the man with the donkey and you. And what is that relationship? And how can you making trees actually become something that he likes you to do? How can you share that economics in some way so that he's keen to help you with the water without it being, I'll show you this. This is something I read yesterday. This is oh, maybe it was here. This is someone oh no, that's not it. That's Bangladesh. I'm speaking with a friend from Bangladesh tomorrow. I want to try and do the same thing there with them too. I want to be able to connect with the young people there with them too. So just to say that's kind of where I'm going. And I'm just going to try and see if I can find that one article. If not, I will move back onto what I want to do today. Nope, don't have it there. But basically what the article was showing was how the people with the water were basically extorting people without the water in Bangladesh. So the farmers who need the water for their irrigation were being extorted by people who had access to a pump and that going on. So how do you make sure that that doesn't end up to be the case in what you do? Because that sort of situation is very easy to happen. And how do you end up that you don't end up being in some ways behaving in that way too? Okay, so that's enough of me. That's kind of, I'm going to shrink this back. I'm going to open it back up and say, you know, what do you all think from listening to what Kaka said and thinking about it in terms of kind of where can we find livelihoods? Where can we begin to create a living out of doing what was done? Anyone want to start?
Yeah, maybe I can have ourselves start off. If you look at Kenya, it is made up of a young population, to say so. Majority of the people here in Kenya are, are young in age and all that. And there is a lot of talent and industrious kind of a culture around what they do. The only thing that maybe I can mention is that sometimes they may not have the enough knowledge to use that tap and create livelihood over the same, and especially in an angle that seems to favor our planet Earth. if you look, for example, I know Manyasi know this. For example, what Manyasi does
Can I interrupt you there and actually focus it down a bit? Because what I want to do is for us to recognize where in the things that we see, how can we see the opportunities there? So if you look at what I'm still sharing in those pictures in there, where's the livelihood in there? So I don't want us to think about how we can bring other people and stuff. I want us to be thinking about, if I'm doing this, and currently this is how I'm managing it, and am I actually creating a livelihood out of doing this so that I can do this, so that I can bring, when I go on past, in the case as Kaka is, he's going to graduate, he's going to be a lawyer, he's going to be a brilliant lawyer, he has really great skills. And it would be wrong for him to spend his entire life doing this along in that way, so that he can then bring on someone else because it's a livelihood, so that they can do that too. So I want to look at it from that side. How can this help me to pay for me in these years? And in doing so, it will create livelihoods for others and make this something which I think, as Manyasi described before, kind of it's genuinely, it has the ability to continue itself. I'm avoiding the word sustainable because the word sustainable gets used by it gets used to mean everything from what's blatantly unsustainable to what is. So I just want this as a kind of brainstorming thing. So just ideas up. I've got a piece of paper in front of me. I'm going to just write down every idea.
There's a livelihood around the trees.
Sorry?
There's a livelihood around the trees or the plant on the sapling, that I can be able to see on the screen.
Right. Just mention, what do you see that you can say, okay, if we did this, then we can earn some money. If we did this, then this will help someone else earn some money. If we did this, then.
Yeah. If, for example, you look around the trees, for instance, one, we have a couple of values that are found on the trees. For example, we have medicinal trees,
right.
And mostly they are in their natural habitat, rather the others that are, nurtured in tree nurseries and all that. So you'll find that, the medicinal part value of the trees is quite, it's quite useful to the communities. For example, if a child, for example, in the village gets sick, instead of, and maybe there's no hospital around the place where, you are in, maybe you could take leaves of a tree and, grind the leaves, you could boil it and the sick person will take and they heal. For example, we have some species that are found on their natural habitat that when someone is bitten by a snake, if you crush the leaves and you smear that sap on that wound, and then it gives you quite long kind of a thing before you reach to a hospital for treatment. So there's a medicinal value around the sapling and the trees that we need to identify maybe a way by which you can create economics around it that is going to benefit other people on the same essence.
Okay. If I hold you there and if I hold you there and get someone else to speak, either following on from what Kaka has described or something else that they see. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and don't be shy about it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my whole screen. The reason I'm going to share my whole screen is there's a whiteboard option. I don't know how it works. Whiteboard pen. Do I type? Oops. What is here? Okay, that's probably not what I want to do. I think I just want to stop share. I want to share. Okay, but while I'm fumbling, please just let someone else speak. Richard, you can talk too if you want. I mean, it's not.
Always happy to talk. Don't have an awful lot to add to what David has said, but
Well,
we've
no.
spoken before.
No. From what Kaka said,
Yeah,
what comes up as what, or from what was in the picture here, what are the ways in which you can make a livelihood that you can see? So I'm going to put down here what Kaka has said onto this. And Nesola, just, it doesn't matter what you think about it. It's just a brainstorming thing. The first few times you say something in a brainstorming, that just helps other people to think. And then it begins to come together. So what Kaka said is that, the types of trees, and in particular, the medicinal. Can you see this too? Medicinal trees.
yeah, see it fine.
And then it's got things like, actually, if you start thinking about it, you can take leaves, grind it, right? Boil it. Child gets sick. And then there's also snake bite. Crush the leaves. Sap can help till you get to a hospital. Yeah. So there's sort of like natural habitats. Okay. So let's get some other voices, please. Just unmute yourselves. Manyasi, Nisola.
Okay, thanks, David. I think I'll pick the first picture for the two ladies.
Yep.
And think around the packaging for the trees. Coming up with something better than that. That is simply locally made from waste.
Right.
For the seedlings. So that's my cut.
From waste. For
yes.
The seedlings. Excellent. So that's really good, right? So
the packaging, but yeah.
Right? So that speaks directly to you, Nesola. Do you see what I mean? Are you there? Sorry. I don't mean to be. Because when you go and collect your plastics or collect your waste and so on, what you're collecting are potentially the ways that we can have the saplings grow. So that's where the resources are, right? So I'm going to put that in there, basically. So ticking from there, for the so basically this says that there's more to recycling, more to reusing than simply recycling.
Yes.
And there's a huge difference here, because the difference here is you don't have to clean them. Because what happens when you go to recycling and the actual recycling process is they take huge amounts of water, because all the waste that goes there, before they can be reused, they all need to be cleaned. And so the whole recycling process is actually draws tremendously on resources. And if clean water is a problem, they generate dirty water. But with what you're doing, actually, you don't have to clean it. Not in the same way. You can all give it a rinse. You can use grey water to do grey water a lot, because actually, for a lot of things, for them to be reproduced, they need to be very pure. But for it to be enough for you to kind of like do something with it. Now, any idea about just from there that you might have? So we've got lots of different ideas here now. Yeah. So let's think about these, and let's think about, okay, how do they become something that people would say, you know what, this is what I naturally want. so that this is not something that says, do you know Peloton at all? Anyone knows Peloton? Let me share that. You probably don't know Peloton because it's such an alien, such a stupid thing.
It was stupid, but highly successful for a while.
It was hugely successful. Peloton Interactive. I'm going to try and put this so that we can see it. That's Peloton. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Can they see it?
Well, it's shared fine, yeah.
Likes, so I can go explore.
How do you take?
Okay, I'm not going to play his video because it's such a stupid thing. So basically, there are these things. Yeah, exercise bikes, and it became really exercise bikes with a computer screen on it. Basically, that's what it is. Great, simple idea as such, but the problem with it, the problem we see with it is you don't need an exercise bike in the screen with it to exercise. But to create an exercise bike with a screen on it for you to exercise requires you to extract all the minerals from places like, the Congo and other places, which actually suffer as a result of what you do. And it's actually one of the things where it's got a huge sort of sustainability argument for it, that it markets itself with. That's why we don't like that word. So coming back to here, that's a product that I look at and I say, I would never think of needing that in real life, in my life. But there are lots of things that actually people genuinely do need. So how does this ideas here, which ones of those do you think actually answers to, within your experiences, things that people actually can do, actually need?
Okay. Kaka, I thought we'll go first. I think I'll mention what Kaka cited on the medicinal part of it, that if I am in my room, I'm moving into a new house, I'm on my balcony, I need a simple plant that can scare away mosquito, or say can use for either a weekly basis or something. They could just add in a cup of tea or something. Then that connects to somebody trying to say, okay, it's hard for me to plant a tree, but slowly by slowly, I appreciate the importance of these plants around my home. So I think for me, I'll pick it from that perspective, so that it becomes just part of a household activity, rather than something people have to plan, like, okay, we need to go buy a seedling tree, plant a tree, and sort of thing. So if that can be adopted strategically, then it will pull a lot of interest around the community. So okay, that's my point.
Good, brilliant, very good. So Sally, you're quite quiet, so I just want to get some thoughts from you first, and then I'll go on from there.
Okay, so for me, it's the reusing. Am I clear now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the waste reduction. The waste reduction, waste management project, and what we can do really is just to create awareness on how to reduce waste, or to manage, or to we can devise mechanisms to clean their own waste. So yeah, for me it's just the waste. The waste is what is really troubling. Not only here, also in Kenya. Yeah, so awareness will really, yeah, to help in behavior change. That is what we need.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we need.
can you see from what has been said and what the pictures are and so on, how some of that can actually fit into what you're describing about waste? So it's a little bit of a challenge, but actually I see something there. So I just want to see whether you see something there, and I'm going to tell you what I see as well.
For example, can I see the pictures? Okay, for example, the donkey pictures,
Yes.
you can see the environment around there is very dry.
Yes.
That is as a result of what the citizens, or you can say consumers of the environment, the people do to the environment. Because I'm sure the reason why it's very dry is because of people trying to, create infrastructure that really is not contributing to the natural environment. Hence the drying condition that is around there. And yes, and it can be seen where we have like people lacking water. That is not because of the natural whatever habitat or water catchment drying. It's because of the people there. Because we have people building or constructing in the middle of a river. And you have these technologies, from mostly the Asians, where they come up with technologies to, try and beat the natural, or they're creating serious things, and you cannot imagine a whole building with a river passing underneath. Yeah, so it's just consumer behaviorism. We need to aware that, because if we destroy rivers and water, that is crucial, then we'll have nowhere to stay. Yeah,
Okay.
Water is that.
So there's a lot in there that's actually really, really interesting along, and there are different levels of things addressed. And I'm going to pick up on a little bit along in there, and I'm going to pick up your thing about waste, and because there's this and the water and everything else, right? Because there are different kinds of waste. So if I pick up on waste, there are kind of like things which are inorganic waste. So things like plastic, metal, glass, those sort of things are inorganic waste. And there are things which are organic waste. Then we'll leave aside inorganic waste, but organic waste is not waste. Organic waste is not waste. Organic waste are basically the stuff that makes soil. So if you go back onto here and you say it's all dry and stuff, very often what happens is there's not enough organic waste back in there to keep it growing in the same way, or you get the wrong mix. Or if we think about this, what you can then do is you can potentially have a situation where the organic waste actually ends up helping all your plants grow. You can then get into a situation where you join up with what Manyasi says, a community with a lot of organic waste can actually be how they can afford to grow the kind of plants that can keep away the mosquitoes, that can help them with the saps and all those things in the environment, so that the soil and the area around can help it. And if it does that, it can very often actually end up improving some of the aspects of the water and those other things too. Because ground with plants keep water much better than ground without. And that's just one of these things. And as and that gives people a different perspective. It gives them then start thinking about, you can then start talking to them easier about should you build in the middle of a river, as you say, and what's happening in those conversations, because you actually create livelihoods. If you can help people, where Richard and I come from is we all need livelihoods. In a world where we don't see how we can have the livelihoods we want ourselves, we end up being driven to the choices which are the wrong ones, which is where we have the rethinking choices. But if we do that, we begin to actually allow people to think about things that give us joy. Now, I've taken a bit of time, I hope, but I'm going to wrap this up a little bit. And I'm going to say what I hear from this is there is a guide here, over here, about what plants can do and what they can do. A bit like cookbook, a cookery book. There's a sort of a natural guide here. And you can validate that by, if you have medical students and you have kind of people in those things, and if you have got people from cultural history, students of those things, can create that together into something which has an actual sort of, a kind of scientific validity, as well as having those sort of cultural stories as being described in there. And it becomes actually a very interesting kind of guide that even without the trees yet, it tells a story, but you can create a livelihood doing that, and you can create a livelihood teaching people about that. And it's all about creating livelihoods. And I'm just pointing out ways in which I can imagine that that yourselves and your community groups can do that. And as you do so, you bring communities in. So what happens from there is obviously you can have them start thinking about the trees, actually planting them and maintaining them. And what Sally talks about in terms of waste can become something that's actually not just waste, but this is how you deal with waste in the community. And that then goes to comments that Kaka might have talked about the River Nairobi. What are the things that go in there? How do we actually deal with that? And this is what we mean by emergent economics. How the things that we see as being our problems actually becomes an economics that brings the communities together and build better lives. So we can all then this is where Richard and I really want to, is to have everybody in the world being able to see in their own places how they can do that. So that we can go and say, we can cut oil, gas, and coal production now before it's too late. And we can only do that because we can see that we can have a ways to live. Hi, Kennedy. So, how does that sound to you guys? Can we get some feedback about, was this a useful thing to do? Is this a useful thing that you think we can actually go and get teams of young people? Where Richard and I come from this is about a message to the students in the campuses and college degree network to say, the world is better because you're in it. And this is how you can use your talents, to help people with things that give them joy. That's kind of what we're hoping you might agree with, and that we can engage in that together. How does that sound? I'm going to stop sharing. Any feedback?
Yeah, I think when we think in the line of what all of us have just shared, of course, when we thought of the idea of the green network around the campuses, I first thought, there are campuses that has got a lot of just space, it's just idle, and nothing is happening there. And I thought if we could economize this space in a way that, it can improve livelihood in a way that, it can maybe benefit the campus and as well as maybe people that are there, And to my thought, if we could, have these spaces economized in a way that we generate seedlings and take them to place, maybe in small quantities, places like where you've just seen the donkey, those places I believe the reason why they are like that is because there is no rain, or there are no, maybe, of course it's open because it's not tree covered and stuff. So if I'm just trying to think harder, that if during closing, every student go with 5 trees back to their village and ensure that those trees, by the time a student is finishing campus or college, those trees will grow to maturity. I'm pretty sure they would have, touched a life back in the village. You look, for example, for instance, a tree like a mango tree. A mango tree nearly takes about, let's say, about 8 years to mature.
Okay.
And you take 4 years in campus. For example, if for instance, you are taking law, you take 4 years in campus and 2 years in Kenya School of Law. So by the time the 6 years is over, someone back in the village is celebrating some mangoes, at the same time having a shed. So you can imagine if we do that for 500,000 trees, and we have many students. So if you allocate each one of person a tree to to nature, to cater for it, to grow it, that means when it rains, we will have less mosquitoes, because we will have some species of tree that has got a scent that sends away mosquito. You might not expect a robust change in a bigger way, but for sure, somebody somewhere far, miles away from where you are will be saying, I benefited. I'm eating this fruit as a result of someone else who took a step somewhere. And it's not just away from maybe having faith and bringing an impactful kind of a way in the communities. You're also building a network by which you bring essence of livelihood in the sense of that it could be in a smaller way, but it's something happening. There's progress. I was just recently, thinking deep on what David said concerning why Jesus was not born in Pumwani Hospital. Some of us know in Kenya that Pumwani is the best hospital maternity in Kenya, the most expensive one. So I was thinking on the essence that why was he born in a manger, and he was a son of a king, So it means where he was born, there are good things, So I'm just trying to think in a way that, if we could do this for sure, then we are going to improve our lives somewhere. So that's my comment on that. If you go to the line of finding a way by which we can, because of course around the campuses, especially most of the campuses are found in town where there is water, for instance, so we can always generate these seedlings in quite a good number of them. And you've seen under us, under EACCGN, we have a couple of partners. If you all of us come together and say, this year we're going to grow maybe 200 medicinal plants, 300 tree orchards, maybe we also have trees that has got the kind of a perfume, natural perfume, not the one that is made. So I'm just trying to think in that line of duty. Yeah, thank you.
So I take that. I think that's really, really good. I think, again, back to the economics, and I think back into, there is a real economic story here of how you can bring people together so that there's a flow of money along that helps you to make this into reality in there. And the other thing that pops up into my head is a title, and the title is the Kenyan Book of Trees, basically. And from what you're talking about, sorry, okay, Sally.
To add on what is saying is, recently there's been something to do with carbon credits and carbon financing, right? And
Yes.
Climate financing, sorry. So, and they're advocating for more tree coverage so that we can cap the carbon around. So trees really are going to see us through if we do that collectively, not that we have some parts of the country where there are trees, others have, plus nowadays we have hybrid trees that don't really need a lot of water to grow. So we can put that as well. Yeah, they take a shorter time to mature, and they consume less water to flourish, and also it's easier to manage. Yeah, so we can use that adaptation measure. Yes.
Yep. So that brings in a different dimension, and actually then says to me a bit of how you want to form how I would like to think about forming these teams, as it were, because you want someone who can do some of the sums, who's more comfortable with doing the sums. How much water does a tree need? Where is it going to grow? Is it going to actually end up being a problem for the water? You want someone who is kind of aware of some of the broader climate kind of aspects of things. Not everybody is, but as Sally's describing, you know, there's all the things about potentially carbon financing, carbon credits, and those sort of things. And I mean, Richard and I feel that they alone don't do anything. They work only when you actually cut oil, gas, and coal production. And that's the part that nobody wants to address, but we want to address that. We want all these actions to help us recognize all those things come to become powerful and useful when we actually stop emitting as well. As long as we keep pumping the stuff out, you're not going to be able to draw it in fast enough. But that's secondary to the aspect which Sally's bringing up, because what she's brought up is the things about who you want. So the way Kaka describes about going out to the different communities and stuff. So you actually do want to mix the people up from the different places in a way, because and they're not necessarily all about trees, because there'll be other ideas, and that's very important. But each idea can have a scope and a potential. So just from what Kaka's showing out of those things, we've talked about really a very, very broad scope, lots of opportunities of different things. And then the next thing is, how can we get started? And so from being about the idea, how can you make a start? That's possible. And actually what I'd quite like to do is, how many of you know Morris?
Yeah, I do know him.
So he and the community he works with got started, and it's actually quite a brilliant story in its way. So I'm just seeing if he's around. Yeah, I'm just catching up with him to see if we can join soon. What's the link? How do I find the link on this?
Oh.
That's the one.
It's 12:02 in the WhatsApp.
Yeah. So so they had an idea along, and they wanted to, and there was a lady came along and says it's avocado season, lots of avocados around. He and I had a chat about oil, and he ended up saying, can we, is it possible to buy an oil press, $600-700? Can do that. I'm sort of like, I'm skeptical. I'm thinking, you can make one, can't you? Here's what it looks like. I didn't say you can make one. I said, you can manual oil presses. And I had a picture, showed him. He showed it to one of the people in his community. They made one in a week. And then from there, they've now made lip balm with some beeswax from another part that they can get hold of. They've made a press along, and they've got licenses around, and hopefully they're going to be able to start selling this, for really maybe $1, a bit of lip balm, and they can perfume with lavender oil and other things. And so the scope now starts opening up, and this is from not really very much to start. So I think the part that's important here is to say, okay, how would you start? And that's important, because very often we think we need a lot before we can start. But Kaka knows about in terms of planting saplings and stuff. And here we're actually doing similar sort of things and saying, actually, to create the economics along, how can you start? How can you make that economics work? And there you need a little bit of what do you call it? Business planning. You know, what resources do I have? What do I need to connect with? How can I go about it? How far? And really, how can I make a small move and then make that on and grow that on? I think we've taken a lot of time. It's taken quite long, but that's an essential part about it. Morris may join. Okay, let's see. So maybe
He's got the link, so
yeah, give him with the link there. So please speak up yourselves as well. I mean, I'm now at this point where I think I'm just talking by myself.
Yeah. Well, maybe once again. So to all of us, it's a challenge, and you know, it always seems impossible until it's done. That's what I believe in, and I will say this because of you know, last week I talked to a friend in Narok, and you know, I think he was on our pre-launch, and he was trying to share with me, you know, how Narok is flooded, you know, when it comes to, you know, the rains, you know, it's flooded and all that. Lowland or something. And whatever I was trying to share is it was a very good kind of an approach on what they are doing, you know, back in the village and all kind of stuff. So I remember that you know, like in 2018, I had reached out to someone and I told them I shared the idea of this, and because majorly we are being advised that, you know, it's good to do indigenous kind of tree growing because they have got a bigger value than any other tree. And I think to me, what I think is we can always start. It is not difficult. The only thing that is need to do is to identify the business across it and find a way by which the business can be self-sustaining. In essence, that, you know, as you grow these trees, as a sell a sapling or you know, or whatever quantity it may look like. How does that one happen? But if you have seeds and we go ahead and grow the seeds, the normal you know, the normal size of a tree that has grown from the nursery, and now it has reached the level by which you want to transfer it to another place now to go and grow it. And then I think it is not difficult. I think yeah, it is possible. I think the only thing that we need to do is to have seeds and also find ways of how to get those seeds. Because like, I think for me where I am now, the only thing that is the challenge for me in a while is, I think, the issue of water. But I've seen, you know, people getting interest, a lot of interest on how they can, you know, indulge in the business of trees and all that. So market is actually available for this. The only thing we need to do is a little bit patient for the business to thrive.
And yes. I think from there, the part I want to add is there's a size to the business that's limited by your water. So you've got to be careful you're not actually going too far. Because if you are, then what happens? You end up depleting the whole place of water, and then that ends up not being good. But there's a way to make use of the gray water and the brown water and all the other sort of different colors of water that you can have in order to grow trees. And the trees themselves can help you filter the water and reuse in other ways too. So actually, very often when it seems like the problem is the water, it is very often that we're not looking at it in the way to say, actually, this is a resource, what can we do with it in that form? So that's where another opportunity arises and another can come. Morris is here, so I just want to invite him to talk a little bit about his experience with his community, about how they have done that. Morris, I muted you. Do you want to unmute yourself? You want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Boris.
You're driving?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you quite faintly, yes.
It sounds like you're using the radio on.
I'm traveling at the moment. I'm going to see my grandma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but when they said I have to jump in and say about the experience of the community. What you needed to identify what are
Can you wait, is your microphone near you?
maybe. All right, can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yeah.
All right, so I was saying, in my community right now, we are stage of producing natural resources. What we needed to do is have the viewers, to have some people of the community to spend oil press that working with avocado oil. The avocados that were being thrown away in the community, now we are using them to create some natural cosmetics. So what was needed is a lot of community planning, especially bringing together different interests, identifying the aspiration of each and every member of the people that we are involved in this project, and trying to have a connection and a middle ground, how we can be able to have ability around it, especially because the project is from an area that is regarded as slum, an area that very many people never thought or still think that nothing good can come of it. Now we are transforming that we can be able to create something that is not there by using the available resources to transform them into something that will give them a sustainable income.
Hi. So yeah. We got a part of that. We got some of that, and we're gonna have a call tomorrow to catch up more, right? I think is that right, Richard? Yeah.
All right.
And so I'm going to take this, and thanks for joining on, and give your grandmother our best, and I hope everything's okay.
All right.
I'll share your picture of my
Everything is okay.
Hi, Maurice.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I think what I want to do is, I think Richard and I, we've given the idea of where we are. The idea is we want to ask you if you'd like to help and say to really kind of students in the campuses and colleges Green Network and say, let's use what we do to create livelihoods for ourselves and for communities, so that they can see that actually the green actions are not just about some ideal, it's about the things that give them joy, and creates opportunities for us to connect. I think what I've taken from here is to connect across to other groups and other people, to connect up with our ambitions and those things. And what we want to do is connect up with the whole world through sharing our experiences, sharing of these things and taking them along. And by doing so, we can actually get the correct focus onto climate change, from Richard and I, which is we have to cut oil, gas and coal production now before it's too late. And there's a second part to our campaign, what we call the things that give us joy, which is to take the actions that you can do and make clips of things that give us joy out of it from all around the world. And we make an epic movie for what we propose as transformational ownership, which I think you may have heard before, which is a way by which we can become the ones in control of the oil, gas, and coal companies. We put them into the hands of people from everywhere around the world, but in one name and in one voice. And what that voice is to say is, we cut production. We have all the talents in these companies to work together to cut production in line with all the government net zero pledges. And we take all the profits from these companies and we give them to everyone in the world. So literally, Sally, Kennedy, Kaka, Richard, and me, we all get the same amount out of it. So that's kind of our ultimate ambition, and to do that this year by taking it to COP28. So we don't just march to COP28. We take a whole new governance on oil, gas, and coal to COP28. But we can only do that in a sensible way if we can let ourselves and the communities that we're with know that they can have a living. And that's why it starts with this. So are you guys okay? Next step. Any thoughts of a next step?
Yeah, I think David, I think over the last call we had, we decided that you're going to have a groups of different, and that's why actually we decided like we are going to have like Google Docs over the same for registration and the kind of thing. And I think we developed, and now so far I think we have I shared like if from different East African countries, those students that have already started, we have Makerere University, they're already on the ground. And I was telling them if they could do a story over what they are doing already. They have started actually. Victor just called me, gave me a WhatsApp call a few hours ago and told me that they have already begun to spread the news of trying to engage students in different clubs and hubs to enhance what we are projecting under EACCGN. And I told them if they could do maybe, it tells me already we are identifying, and I think the environmental, coaches and all kind of lecturers that are teaching several courses that are related to connected to issues of, the area of agriculture and others. They have already started. So I think what we need to do is to identify, groups that we can work with in a thematic way, whereby you can even decide that you can be able to doing a webinar once a week or twice a month, to just identify the steps they have taken in this. So I think maybe the issue of trying to create groups and try to follow up keenly on what each one are doing. But maybe the other question is on what angle should we be doing this? What exactly, what kind of trees, what kind of sapling? Is it, are you going to do tree orchards? Is it going to be, that's kind of a logistics. So what we may also need maybe to discuss over the same. Okay.
So do you think what we did today is useful? I think Sally is still here. I'm afraid we lost our other friend, but Ken has just joined. Sally, is what we did today, was it useful for you?
Yeah, it was. We brainstormed on not just the idea, but how far the idea can go, and who we need to have on board, not just us. But it was very helpful regarding how far can we really go. That was the aspect that maybe was missing, because projects are lacking the long-term, idea. Some are just briefcase, ideas just happen for 6 months and that's it. So for us, the long-term thing is what is going to make us stand out. Yes.
Okay. So what I've got is we started the Zoom, we moved to the Zoom because it automatically records. If you're okay, I'll give the recording to
And David, we have Kennedy with us.
Okay, brilliant. Hi, Kennedy. And Mayasi is back. And what I was going to say is, if we share the recording with you, we share it with other people. If you found it to be useful, if you want to cut it into snippets that make sense to you or otherwise, so that and maybe we set a date to have like a just a kind of a questioning to get bigger group together, and we can have, you know, we can answer questions. People can hear what we said, the brainstorming, the idea of it, and actually we can have that as a way to get more people together and see how that goes along through. And we can have the breakout rooms and things to start talking about ideas, and actually see how that goes along. Would that work?
Yeah, sure, it does. It does work. It does.
So, can you give us?
And I also think we can also have maybe along the way we can also think of maybe polls.
Yeah. So
Right.
maybe that can then generate that out, because that can then go on to the next part, because ultimately we want this very soon to become practical things, to say, actually, we're going to try this, the different groups are going to try different things. They each can then come back and share and say, that work we generate, we managed to, you know, we can now see how what we do can continue itself. You know, that we've got money coming in to do the things. But most of all, most importantly, what I really want to emphasize is we're not selling a tree, we're selling a whole heritage. We're selling a connection, or it's not, we're building a connection with a community. You know, if it's a tree, that's what it is. If it's collecting waste or whatever it is, we're not collecting waste. We're actually building a bridge to a community. And I really want that to be clear, because that's the difference between an emergent economics and economics that actually naturally emerges. So if you look at life all around, when you go out, when you leave this call, go and take a look, no matter where you look, see the life that's there and see how it connects with everything around it. That's what we're doing. And it can be a small little bit, a tiniest little mite that just scurries around, or it could be, you know, a large carnivorous animal walking through. Hopefully not too many of those where you are, but just kind of see how that connection is. That's the economics we want to develop. The economics we have come to have is a very extractive one, where it says, pay me the money, that's it. And for that link of the water extortion, and that's exactly how it becomes. So when we go out and actually create this, we need the communities we work with to understand that this is an economics that helps them. So it does so. And Morris's, we'll get Morris to make it clearer another time, is an example of how actually that happens, because his whole community got together to make it possible. So they all know, they all benefit from it. And there's an economic model, there's a kind of like a sharing model, a profit sharing model, so that everybody knows they gain some things around that in that way as well. And we can talk about those in more detail along that. Richard, I think you want to say something. You don't? Okay.
No,
okay.
I'm good.
I'm cognizant of time. So can we, do you want to, let's if we try to do this thing in terms of like a get together, in terms of a bigger meeting with more people in that way, there needs obviously to be time to inform them. So maybe next week I am away, but I could possibly do something in the evening, which would be very late for you, because that's not good.
David, maybe I was thinking, maybe from the time we began this up to where we are today, is it possible that during our launch, we try play a film before, like, you know, for everyone to follow, you know, like they need to get a story behind what we've been doing and the achievement we've achieved so far. Yeah, if we could do that, it will be really, really great. And I think this is, it is, I believe that it is stories that keeps the world moving, you know, and such inspiring stories of different cultures coming together, you know, trying to create a livelihood where there's challenge, they come together and all that sort of thing. So I'm thinking like, we need to, you know, have, even if it might not be like a full clip or something, but at least to have something to show the people that this is the extent we have come, and that we are moving in this angle direction, so that the things that also motivate them to join us in this bigger picture of what we are.
That's a brilliant idea. It's a really, really good suggestion. Let's tie ourselves down a bit with when do you think it makes sense to have people come together? I'd like to do it soon, but obviously not so soon that we can't prepare something.
Yeah, I don't know. We intend to think about April, but I know the webinar are going to continue. I'm preparing.
Yeah, I'd like us to get teams and things together to really start moving to the next part. And then there's another film for like an even bigger thing. So by the time you get to your launch, it's like these things are already there.
Yeah, you need to talk to Akansira. Akansira from Malawi already have a whole thing that they can share with you from where they are. I think he shared some photos with me. Yeah, they are doing something. He already sent me the names of the students from Malawi University and stuff. So they are doing something. There are groups that have already grouped themselves. Also in Uganda, you need to have a day to talk to them from Uganda and see what they are doing. Likewise, Rwanda International Leadership University, they are doing something as well concerning the same. Actually, for them, they are doing cultural in how cultural heritage helps in combating climate. Climate issue. So it's already there. I can say we have about now five campuses, having the same thing already rolling on. So I think you need just to find a way by which you can have a webinar with them and try to find out what they are doing on their far end. And then from there
do you think they would possibly have time,
they do. They
tomorrow or something, or
if I have talked, I can talk to them today, and then I can possibly email you over the same.
Yeah, we have our we said we're going to have a weekly call, so we're going to try and do that. We're going to put this into sort of what we talked about and things. We're going to share it. Maybe they can join it for that, on Friday.
Yeah. It would be an idea.
Just share with me the links, and then you can give it.
Yeah, I'm going to change that thing because I'm going to change it to a Zoom thing rather than a Meet thing. It's just and then I can get all the. Yeah, actually, if they have emails, if you give me that, then I can do that together and put it all together.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I can try and get more other people and join it, connect up. Okay. So why don't I'm cognizant of time. You've taken a lot of your time. Really grateful for it. I'm going to take this recording, pass that over to you, and actually do share it. And then Kaka, if you can connect us with the other people, and Mayasi, Nasola, and Kennedy, please just kind of the ideas and suggestions along as to how we take this on to the next stage to get people engaged. And the way I see it is, you are the example to the rest of the world, to students in campuses and colleges in the rest of the world. That's why I'm keen to get this going, so that they can see the example and they can see that they can do this too. And it's not because we've done something that's really successful, it's because we are taking a step forward. And they can take a step forward too. And that's basically what we think. So we don't have to wait.
Maybe we can give Kennedy or Alo a chance to say hello to us.
Hey, hi. Yes. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Hello. I'm sorry for getting late. I was a bit held up in other meetings, but I've caught up with few discussions, which is leading to the right positive direction. And maybe my takeaway, your action point is to do a mapping of institutions and which areas we can establish the chapters, like university chapters within East Africa, so we can see what best works as per specific area. Because in Kenya, we have different challenges, and in Uganda, we have different challenges. So when we do a right mapping, then we'll know and know the exact needs that we are going to address. And with the connectivity, it's a good idea that it will bring people, and it will be more of a sustainable kind of intervention that will more be like of communal than any other thing than an institution. But I'm looking forward for this more further engagements on this and on various ways we can do it better. Thank you.
Thank you, and absolutely right. Everywhere the challenges are different, and so the ability is for this to meet those challenges in the way that's natural to them. So that would be the story. And okay, so I'm going to finish this now, and really thank you for all the inputs. I hope it's been useful, and let's hope that we can create something out of this. We're going to try and take some of this out also with Kalka's idea about making a film, an introduction to it. We need help from other people. I'll send an invite out. We really need a way in which we can start collecting kind of emails, contacts, and those sort of things. Richard and I are somewhat in the dinosaurs in terms of being able to do that. So if anyone has any means of doing that, I'd be grateful to help us. Okay, thank you. I'm going to finish it here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for connecting, and we are looking forward to hear from you again.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
In Kiswahili, we say Asante.
Asante.
Yeah.
Asante.
Thank you. Thank you.